Alright, we have seen it all before. Another 3D printing video. They're popping up all over the place, and this one's going to be mine. I'm just a big proponent of if I can do it, anyone can do it. And with that, I set out on my 3D printing journey, ended up getting an Elegoo Saturn 3 along with the wash and cure station for a pretty good deal. Now, I know nothing about 3D printing, but I know that I wanted a 3D printer to print out the Trench Crusade models that have now been released. I'm going to walk you through the process. If you're new to 3D printing, if you've had any interest in it, I'm going to talk a little bit about my first experience, my first prints, and just kind of give you my overall thoughts and rundown. Now, I am very fortunate in that I do have space to 3D print, and I didn't really realize how much space that one would need. I am going to print in my garage for safety purposes. It's no secret that resin is toxic, and I don't want my kids or my animals or anyone else near it. I don't want them breathing the fumes. So I'm going to print in my garage, crack the garage open a window as well, and that should give plenty of ventilation. But if you're working in a closed area, that's going to present a problem, or if you have a small area, having space to set up your printer, the cure station, the wash station, and you actually need some elbow room to work, it can be a challenge for a lot of people. Now, setup is really easy. Everything comes really well packaged. You just simply slide it out, level your build plate for your 3D printer, and you're pretty much good to go. I did buy a few extra things. I bought a silicone rubber tray to kind of catch any spills if anything went wrong, and to give me a little workspace. And I also got some shop towels. I did read that you'll need a lot of paper towels. Now, a lot of people say that 3D printing is a hobby in its own right, and I would say that that's true to some extent, but 3D printing has come such a long way. Now, I compare this to my FDM printer. I used to have an Ender 3, and now I have the Bamboo Lab A1, and the Bamboo Lab A1 is really self-sufficient. There's not a whole lot that you have to do. It just plugs in and prints. And a lot of the resin printing, what really put me off was supports. And nowadays, you can buy a lot of pre-supported models. That wasn't always the case in the past. I did take the time to learn how to do my own supports, and you'll see some of these on the file here. These are some Sisters of Sigmar from Mordheim, and only 2 of them came pre-supported. And the rest of them I had to support myself, but I had a friend show me how to do it, and I had all of these supported and ready to go in probably 30 minutes. Now again, with a lot of files coming pre-supported nowadays, while they're not always the best supports, you will want to still learn how to do this. It does give you a massive advantage versus having to do everything yourself. What I found was really interesting is the time it takes to actually do a 3D print, and you want to be sure you fill your build plate as much as possible, because the time is based on the height. So if you only loaded up one of these models and printed it, it may take 2 hours, whereas if you had an entire build plate full of models, it may still just take 2 hours. Now what you just saw me do is playing around in the settings because I wanted to update my resin cost to see how much printing these models would be. I put in $20, but realistically I paid about $16 for the resin, so it would be even cheaper. After slicing, 2 hours will be the print time and 72 cents to make all of these models. That absolutely floored me. 72 cents to make all of these models, an entire warband for Mordheim. That is absolutely insane. I saved the file to my thumb drive, transferred that to my 3D printer, and since we're working with resin, there's 2 critical pieces of equipment that you want to have, and that is gloves and a respirator, especially when printing. Since I had resin already sitting in my vat for a few days, I gave that a little stir, being very careful not to scrape the bottom, as that is where a sensitive piece called the FEP is located, and you don't want to scratch that. So I do want to mix the resin up just to be sure that it's a good consistency. Before pouring resin in, you do want to give it a good shake. Then just simply hit print, select the file from your thumb drive, or if you're wireless, you can auto send to your printer, and away you go. And 2 hours later, I come back, pull the top off, and the models are done. So I'll twist a quick screw here, and there's different mechanisms depending on what printer you have. I'll take the build plate off and scrape the prints off on my workstation. The prints all appeared to stick very well, so I used my scraper to get those off the build plate, and those of course drop onto my paper towels. From there, I transfer the prints into some pickle jars that I picked up on Amazon. These were super cheap, and I have some 99% isopropyl alcohol in these, and these are kind of a pre-wash before I actually put them into my wash station. The purpose of this is to try to keep my IPA as clean as possible so it lasts for as long as possible. So I'll put it in one bin, shake it up, and that will get the initial resin off of the models. I'll then transfer it to a second one and do the same thing, hopefully getting a little bit more, and then I will actually put it into my wash bath. From the wash station, I will wash these miniatures for 10 minutes. There's a little motor in here that spins that swirls the IPA around and helps clean off a lot of the resin. So if you were putting them directly in from the printer, this IPA is going to go bad a lot quicker than if you use the multi-station approach. At least that's what I've read. In 10 minutes, the models are ready to come out, and out of the IPA bath, this is when I will scrape off the supports. And believe it or not, these things come apart very easily. This is something that I was kind of worried about, was maybe breaking the models or something like that, but it really does peel away from the models pretty easily. I should mention that another piece of equipment that you may want to invest in is some eyewear, something to protect your eyes, because you certainly do not want to flick a model and have either resin or isopropyl alcohol in your eye. So again, these models break away from those supports really quickly. I'm very pleased with what I'm seeing so far, and I am going to leave these models out to dry for at least an hour. I come back to the workstation after about an hour, and the last thing that we need to do is cure the models, and this will essentially harden the resin. And after that, we'll be able to touch them with our hands. So still using gloves here, I'm going to put these in the curing station. And I did ask a friend on this. The curing times really varies, and I don't know if anyone has an exact answer on how long you should cure models. It's anywhere from 30 seconds to 5 minutes that I've read. What I do know is the more that you cure the model, the more brittle the resin becomes. I also know that you want to be sure that you cure the model long enough to where there's not any resin on it anymore. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cure it for 30 seconds on this side of the model. I'm going to flip it and do 30 seconds on the other side. If I see there's still uncured resin, then we'll go a little longer and figure it out and adjust from there. So the curing station does its thing. And when it's all complete, I think the models look really good. Now, these models are Sisters of Sigmas, and they are from Monstrous Encounters. You can check them out on myminifactory.com. I'm not affiliated with them or anything else, but these Sisters models look very good. They come with a lot of weapon options, and I can't wait to get them assembled. Now, in addition to these Sisters models, I also printed up some Trench Crusade scatter terrain or objective markers, and I'm just so blown away by how detailed the resin printers are. And the only question that I had left was how would they paint up, and I'm pleased to say that for my standards, they do very well. They paint up just the same as any other model. I really can't believe what these printers are capable of. I can't believe what I've been missing out on. And I'm not saying that 3D printers are the end-all be-all. I do think that as time goes on, they're just going to get better and better and more accessible to everyone out there. But I will say that if you're on the fence about getting a 3D printer, if I can do it, you can do it too. And if you're not ready to take the plunge yet, that's okay. The technology is only going to get better. I hope this video has given you some insight on my first 3D printing experience. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments below. Supporters Club, your names are on the screen now. Really appreciate your support. It's by no means necessary. If you watched the video this far, you've done more than enough to support the channel, so thank you so much. We will see you in the next one. Take care.